They said the hills of Obudu could speak. When the moon was fat and the air was still, the earth would hum under your feet, as if some old, buried heartbeat still paused deep below the soil. Elders claimed the sound was the whisper of the first hunters, men who had walked these hills before the white man's maps, before iron tools, before the village itself had a name. Some said those hunters hid a treasure not of gold, but something greater, a gift from the gods after they committed an offense so great that even their names were erased from the drum songs. The treasure was locked away in a chest, bound in chains that no man could break without the gods knowing. To most people in Obudu, it was nothing more than a tale told beside the fire, a way to scare children from wandering too far into the forest. But Okon Eta was not like most people. Okon was 22, broad-shouldered and restless, a young farmer who believed sweat alone could make a man rich. His father's yam farm barely kept the family fed, but Okon was not content with planting and harvesting like generations before him. One Harmattan evening, after the village wrestling festival, he sat under the Eudora tree, licking roasted plantain from his fingers, when a man walked up to him. The stranger's skin was the deep brown of old kola nuts, his hair a tangled halo of grey, his eyes sharp and watchful. A goatskin pouch hung from his neck, and he smelled faintly of rain on dry soil. Without greeting, the man said, "Boy, your land is richer than your father's goats. Dig where the stones sing." Okon blinked, unsure if he'd heard correctly. "What stones? Where?" But the stranger was already walking away, melting into the crowd, until his figure was swallowed by the shadows between the palm torches. That night, Okon lay awake in his bamboo bed, his mind chasing the words, "stones that sing." Sleep would not come. By dawn, he had decided he would find those stones. With the sun just peeking over the hills, Okon set out, carrying a rusty hoe, his father's old cutlass, a water gourd tied with raffia rope, and a small bag of roasted groundnuts. The Obudu hills rose before him, their slopes carpeted in green and gold grass, with mist pooling in the valleys. As he climbed, the forest came alive with sound, the trill of weaver birds, the distant cough of a leopard, the hum of cicadas. Hours passed. He cut through stubborn vines, scrambled over mossy boulders, and crossed streams that beat his ankles with icy water. By midday, sweat soaked his tunic, and his hands were blistered from gripping the hoe. Then, just as he thought of turning back, he saw it a cluster of black stones gathered like a small altar, their surfaces smooth as river pebbles. Out of curiosity, he tapped one with the edge of his hoe. Tang! The sound was sharp, metallic, unnatural for stone. He struck another, and it rang again, high and clear, like a bell muffled in earth. His heart pounded. This must be the stones that sing. Okon dropped his hoe and began to dig. The earth was stubborn, thick with roots that clawed at his blade, but the deeper he went, the cooler the soil became, until his hoe struck something hard. His fingers clawed away the dirt. Slowly, a wooden chest emerged, ancient, darkened with age, and bound in bronze chains carved with patterns he didn't recognize. The chains were cold, colder than river water at dawn, sending a shiver through him. He was still staring when a voice, calm but sharp, cut through the silence. "That is not yours to touch, boy." Okon spun around. An old woman stood there. Her hair was the color of ash, her eyes clouded white like milk, yet she moved with the quiet grace of someone much younger. She carried no walking stick, but her bare feet made no sound on the leaves. She stepped closer, her voice low. That chest belongs to the first hunters of Obudu. It was hidden after they angered the gods. Any man who takes it without blessing will carry their curse until the earth takes him. Okon swallowed hard, but pride rose in his chest. Curses were for cowards. Without a word, he lifted the chest, slung it onto his back, and began the long walk home. The forest was quiet now. Too quiet. Even the birds seemed to hold their breath. By the time Okon reached the village, something felt wrong. His water got sloshed in a strange way. When he opened it, the liquid inside wasn't water, but coarse, dry sand. His father's cutlass, strapped to his hip, was already speckled with rust, as if it had been lying in the rain for months. And the chest on his back, though no one touched it, began to rattle, softly at first, then louder, as if something inside was moving. That night, Okon dreamed. He was running through the Obudu hills, bare feet pounding the earth. Behind him, 5 tall hunters in leopard skins moved like shadows, their eyes glowing green in the darkness. They carried spears made of bone and fire, and though he ran with all his strength, they were always close enough to breathe down his neck. When they caught him, they spoke in one voice, deep and echoing, like drums underwater. Return what you have taken, or be buried with it. Okon woke drenched in sweat, his breath ragged. The next few days were worse. The yams in his barn turned black and soft overnight, collapsing into foul-smelling mush. His mother's goats birthed stillborn kids. When Okon walked through the market square, people who once greeted him warmly now looked away, whispering to each other. Even his closest friend, Ikit, crossed to the other side of the path when she saw him. The elders noticed too. One evening, they called him to the village square, where the great Iroko tree stood. The oldest among them, Chief Eva, spoke. Okon Eta, we hear the hills have begun to whisper again. What have you done? Okon said nothing, afraid they might take the chest from him. But it was already too late. That night, under the flickering light of an oil lamp, Okon broke the bronze chains and opened the chest. Inside, there was no gold, no jewels, only 5 carved ivory masks, each the perfect face of a hunter, with high cheekbones, wide-set eyes, and lips carved in a stern frown. The detail was so lifelike that Okon could see tiny grooves where a knife had shaped their features. A strange scent filled the room, fresh rain, though the sky outside was cloudless. The next morning, Okon carried one mask to the market at Icom, hoping to sell it to a wealthy trader. The man took one look, his eyes narrowing. I will not buy this. This mask belongs to spirits, not men. That night, the trader's hut burned to the ground, the fire starting without spark or wind. The villagers whispered that the flames danced like hunting spears. Fear began to eat at Okon's pride. On the 7th night after opening the chest, the hunters came again, not in dreams, but in flesh. The wind roared through his hut though the windows were shut. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, rising from the masks and solidifying into tall men dressed in leopard skins, each holding a bone spear. The tallest stepped forward, his face hidden behind an ivory mask identical to the ones in the chest. His voice was cold as Harmattan river water. The earth remembers where it belongs. But you must pay the toll. Okon fell to his knees, weeping. I will return it. I will bury it back in the hills. The hunters moved as one, surrounding him. The tallest leaned close, and Okon saw that behind the mask, there was nothing, no face, no eyes, only darkness. The next morning, the villagers found Okon's hut empty. The masks were gone. The chest was gone. At the base of the Obudu hills, where the black stones sang, a fresh mound of red earth stood, smooth and undisturbed. Atop it sat 5 ivory masks, their carved eyes staring toward the village. Some say the hills grew quiet again after that, but when the harmattan winds howled through the grass, the whispers returned now with a 6th voice among the first hunters. Young, stubborn, forever searching for treasure.